Hi guys, I'm Heidi Kemper, psychic medium.
Hi everyone, I'm Cathy Metry, psychic intuitive, and welcome to Scorpio Rising. Hi.
Hi honey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm super excited about this podcast, and we have a very special guest, a very close friend of yours and mentor, Lori Lipten. So I can't wait for you to tell us a little bit about Lori. And she's going to be joining us soon. But before we move along, I have to talk about the gallery read that you and Lori did last week.
It was such an amazing experience on my end. I have to say that spirit was very loud, very clear that it was time for me to do a big gallery. As you know, my first gallery was with another really special person to me, medium Rob Thompson. And spirit kept telling me it's time for you to do another one. And so they're like knocking me, Lori. Okay, my teacher, like, of course, I want to ask her, but getting up the nerve to ask her, which it's funny because she's the most sweetest person that you could ever meet, and she is so approachable, but I guess I was afraid she'd say no. But in any event, asked her, and of course she was like, of course, of course. So for me, what an honor to stand next to my mentor, my friend, and stand next to her and get up there. So for me, it was a magical experience. And the feedback that I've got from the audience is it was a good experience for them too. So and you were gracious enough to be our MC, and you did a wonderful job. So thank you again for that. You kind of kept everything put together, introduced us, and knocked it out of the park. So it was really special to have you part of it too, Kath. So thanks again for that.
I I was blown away. So I have never participated in a gallery read event, and some of the things that uh, it was very touching. I mean, some of the things that uh, came about throughout it, the healing that occurred for so many people, and having you and Lori reach their loved ones right then, right there, their names, their first names, their brothers' names, their sisters' names, the events of their death, and the things that they wanted to say to their loved ones. I mean, it was mind blowing, and I am so happy that I participated.
So with that wonderful experience, comes the moment of remembering everything that you said. And so we kind of talked about this is I'm a channel. When I'm giving the messages, I'm a channel. And so we surrender to the divine, and we trust that the divine is going to bring through the information to the people that need to hear it the most. And I think the divine did an excellent job that day. And I'm very honored and humbled to have been part of it. So thanks for that. I think that's a great segue for me to introduce Lori. So if you want to give me that opportunity, I'll go ahead and introduce her. Her reputation does precede her. She has a wonderful reputation, not only in the state of Michigan, but really around the country, and she does travel the world. She is a shamanic medium, a best-selling author, a soul retriever, and an empowering teacher and retreat leader. I am honored to introduce her, Lori Lipten.
Oh, hello. Hi.
Hi, hi, Lori.
So good to be here
Hi.
with you. I'm absolutely blown away by that beautiful introduction. Thank you. Thank you for including me in this wonderful podcast.
Well, I'm
We
so
are
honored
so
to have
happy to
you.
have you here.
And we did a great gallery reading, audience reading, didn't we, Heidi? It was so much fun to work together. It was such an honor to be there with you and to have our community show up boldly as they did. And that was really an exciting experience. I had no idea, Cathy, that was your first time, experiencing that and what it's like to allow spirit to take charge, really trusting that the divine is going to take charge and bring those messages to loved ones in the audience. It was really great privilege to be with you in that way.
Thank you.
Totally.
Thank you. It was unbelievable. I'll treasure the experience, and you blew my mind. As the audience, I got to really hear the outcome. I mean, you're terrific. You're a star.
Thank you.
So Lori, we talk a lot about our gifts that, living authentically, my biggest thing is living authentically and sharing my gifts with the world.
Yes.
And we talk about that and really using the words gift versus, you use the word medicine. And so can you explain a little bit about when you knew you had the gift of different medicines to share with the world, and when you realized that you were different and special?
Well, I think I came out of the womb realizing I was different. I don't know about special, and I don't know about gifts, but I definitely saw things in a way that I noticed others maybe didn't acknowledge. And so when I was little, like 5, 6 years old, I had past life recall. I just remembered my most recent life. I remember thinking my skin should be brown and that I should be male and living in India. And I told my parents, they don't understand. I had an ashram. What happened? And they were like, So they didn't know what to make of me. And I didn't even know what those words meant, to be honest. I really did not understand what I was saying, except that I had that experience. I also could sort of see and feel, sense the essence of people. I always could feel the truth beyond the words. And so I would know what people were experiencing and feeling. I didn't have language for that. It's not like in our household. My household is a highly intellectual household, but it wasn't common to talk about psychic or intuitive or anything like what any one of us do. So I didn't have language. And in a way, it may sound like it was a hindrance. I think it was a blessing because it didn't get in the way. I just had my experiences.
Right.
Right. And so even like in the 3rd grade, I'm asked, to stand in front of the class, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I told everybody I wanted to be a psychologist. I knew I wanted to be a psychologist. I don't know how I knew that. And that I wanted to live my life like Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi, because I had returned to the world to help people heal what was in their heart and love more. And
Beautiful.
And it still it chokes me up. And the only reason I know that I said that is because it was documented. And then I found it later, and I was a young adult and I read it and I was like, oh my God, I remember doing that in front of the 3rd grade class. And I'm grateful that the class didn't go crazy and go, what kind of weirdo,
I have to tell you, that reminds me of being a child, and every night we go to bed. And as you know, Lori and Cathy, I grew up Catholic, and we prayed every night before bed. So we get our pajamas on and we get on the side of our bed and we say our Fathers and our Hail Marys, and then we'd say our prayers, our just open prayers. And I remember one night laying in bed and just saying, and just having this feeling of love come over me. And I remember just saying, I love everyone in the world, and really just feeling it. And then I remember saying, Mom, I just love everybody. I even love the bad people in jail. Even the people that are in jail, Mom, they deserve love. And I love them too. And I can remember that feeling of just absolute love in my heart. And so when you say that, it's like, I feel that feeling that, children, they're so authentic, and they feel and they speak their feelings. And I just feel really grateful to have that memory. And I know, like, you are grateful that you have that documentation of that event, because how special that at a young age that we knew what we were here for. Maybe we forgot for a little bit, you go through teenage years and you go to high school and you go to college and you're like, what do I want to be when I grow up, kind of a thing. I always knew I wanted to be a healer. I wanted to be a nurse. I mean, I was one of the few people in my class that started out as a freshman in college and stayed with nursing all the way through. That was a rarity. But hence the whole psychology thing. And do you think that your choice in career, humanistic psychology, do you think it had something to do with your career choice based on the fact that you wanted to bring more love to the world?
No question about it. I think what you're saying is really important and speaks to, what I feel like I'm here to do, and you and Cathy are here to do, and even the producers of your show. I feel like we do know who we are when we're little. We may not have language for it. We may not, say it in a third grade class. It doesn't matter. I really don't think that's the point of it, is that we really come in connected to that love. And when we can stay and remain in touch with that loving essence, that's the truth of who we are. And then the ways those gifts, as you use the word gifts or medicine or our abilities are meant to be used, are going to find it through our natural skills, our natural interests, our natural abilities, right? And so one of mine happens to be, my orientation is toward healing, like yours. Yours is in the physical sense, mine is in the emotional, mental sense, but I don't think it really matters. I think it's just, this is the way that I was led, and my interest took me there, and allows me, it gave me a portal, an entry point for showing up even more fully in a way I didn't expect, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
I love that.
Beautiful. So Lori, I have to ask you, and we had a chance to touch on it a little bit earlier when we were talking. And I was intrigued by your answer to this, and talking about your mission to the world.
Yes. So you mean in terms of normalizing intuition and helping everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things I'm here to do. And what I said to you, I think you and I spoke about this, and I feel very strongly about it, is that I think intuition is natural, it's innate, everybody has it. I actually feel like in this lifetime, one of the reasons I'm in this body, sort of a mom, the girl next door, regular sort of person, is to help the world understand that it's everybody's gift. Everybody has it. We can all cultivate it and nurture it. Not everybody's going to be a psychic medium or a shamanic medium, but everybody can use their intuition to navigate their life, to feel healthy, to thrive in mind, body, and spirit. And so that's what I feel like I'm here to do, is help normalize it and take the kind of woo-woo out of it, or enjoy the woo-woo, but not make it so that it's so othered and so weird or so frightening, or, and even, not religious or not safe or not, right. And so that's something I feel really strongly about, is helping people really reconnect to that truth.
Well, and I have so many, this is such an important topic, and I'm so happy and thrilled that you're sharing it, because intuition, I have so many girls that will call me up and say, Cathy, I had an incredible reading with you, but I want to learn, because I have intuition, I have dreams, I have seen where I feel something is going to happen and it happens, or vice versa, where all of these women, and I'm reading for them, and I'm thinking, how come you're not following your intuition?
Yeah.
Right? And a good portion of anybody's path, without developing your intuition and honoring it, you can benefit from knowing exactly what you are working towards and what your intuition is telling you. Instead of listening to 20 different people, how about listening to yourself? And it's that old adage too, oh, she thinks she knows this, and she thinks she knows this, or etc. And it turns out that we need to honor that, and we need to develop it like a muscle. That's right. And it's very important, because it will dictate the positivity in our future and our ability to use discernment. So and it has nothing to do with a religious, concept. It is just personal development.
Yeah. And that's when I have those clients that come to me and say I will refer them to Lori, or I will tell them, take a class, go online. There's classes. There's all sorts of classes online. The intuitive practitioner course, I think that's a good segue into the intuitive practitioner course, and kind of talking about what that is, Lori. And that was channeled information, right? That you downloaded from the divine, and how they wanted you to set that up.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more intricate than just saying it's channeled. Yes, it is, but I work in a shamanic way, which means that I work in collaboration with helping spirits who are benevolent, they're divinely attuned. And I use a method of a way of entering a very deep state of awareness, a meditative state, kind of like what some people would call samadhi or awakening. I go into a practice called shamanic journeying, where I surrender my ego and actively engage in the world of what shamans call non-ordinary reality and work with them. And it was in a shamanic journey that two of my master guides came forward, one of them being a yogi, very famous one actually, and the other one being a Native American, and a relatively famous one, if you can be famous and in those worlds. And they were completely different, but they gave me the gift of the intuitive practitioner program and asked me if I would bring it into the world. It chokes me up actually. And I said yes, and then realized, I have a tendency to say yes to intuition before I think about it. It's like saying, yes, I'll do a gallery reading, and then going, what did I agree to? Right? Sure,
Yeah.
I'll do it. And so then I have, and it's a living, breathing energy. So I've been learning from it and through it, and growing my own skills as an intuitive practitioner and as a teacher by teaching it, by showing up and learning what it is. So, and the bottom line is that my goal is to empower the lay person who just wants to learn how to use their intuition, and really just make it like, how do I be a better person? How do I, fulfill my own personal purpose? And I also am interested in empowering people like you, Heidi, or you, Cathy. You and I haven't worked in that way together, to awaken the gifts that are inside you so that you can use them if you're drawn to doing so in a professional manner, and do it with responsibility, a sense of responsibility.
Right. And so you talked about shamanic, you consider yourself a shamanic medium, and you talked about shamanism. And so we talked about when you were a little girl, and that you want to bring more love. When was it that you identified with shamanism and kind of introduced it into your life?
So it was such an unusual experience. I never in a million years would have ever called myself anything shaman-like. It didn't even occur to me that that was even a possibility. I had a dream when I was in my 20s, and it was a really profound dream. In the dream, I was on a bus. I was with a group of people that I knew, and I could see into each one of them. I could see their souls, the colors of their essence, the rays. So, and that's a whole spiritual concept of like what their purpose was. And I looked around and I said, is anybody else? I thought to myself, is anybody else seeing this? We were on this bus. We were going on a destination through these beautiful mountains, and the bus driver pulled over into this little cabin-like store. And I got out of the bus and I went in the dream. I'm still in the dream. I get into this store, and there's this beautiful, stunning Native American male standing behind the cash register in plain clothing. And what I mean by that, he was not in traditional clothing, and he had long black hair. And I was standing with my friend Corey Rose at the time in the dream. And all of a sudden, this male, very, austere voice says, "Wake up, shaman, wake up." And so because I could not believe that he was pointing to me, I turned to my friend Corey and I was like, "Corey Rose, girl, you better wake up, wake up, girl. This guy is telling you." And she just looked at me, and he was like, "No, shaman, you." And I was like, what's happening? What could this possibly mean? I couldn't understand it, but I woke up from the dream and it never left. Now, I've subsequently learned, having studied with beautiful indigenous teachers and other shamanic teachers around the country and in the world, that's called a big dream. And that's a dream when a guide comes to you and plants a seed in you to wake you up to who you are. And I'm thinking, I was raised in the Midwest, in the suburbs. I'm like, how am I a shaman? What does it even mean? So it was much later then that I had several encounters with angels and other things that occurred then began opening me to mediumship and other ways where it was like, oh, this intuition thing isn't going to just be private. It's like, I'm going to have to share this with others. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Right. And my favorite story was your first mediumship experience when you were on the treadmill. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. So
it's so moving.
So this is when my intuition really took hold when I'd had an encounter with angels. They changed my life. They saved my life, actually. And I began to learn to trust them. I really wanted to know who they were, how they worked, how they spoke. I didn't talk about it with other people because I didn't want to get locked up. And so
can you tell that story? Can you tell that story too? Because that's another good one.
Yeah, so I could tell that story. So I had significant trauma, and I was trying to drown out the pain of the trauma with alcohol. And I was doing a pretty good job of it. And so one night I was suffering pretty deeply. I was doing shots. I was in so much pain. I was praying to God, please take this pain from me. I can't take it anymore. I was pretty hopeless. I felt like life was not worth living. I didn't think I was ever going to get better or feel better. And I was profoundly suicidal. And I had been asking for help. And all of a sudden, I saw this golden vortex of angels in front of me, and it filled my apartment. And I was kind of like what you said earlier, Heidi, overcome with love. It was like every cell of my body, of my being, was consumed with love. I just felt so loved. And then I heard, put down the drink. This is not your fault. You have a disease and we're here to help. And if you do what we ask, we will help you. We will work with you and you will be free. And that was the beginning of my recovery from alcoholism. I gave up drinking. I was in my 20s at that time. So it was just a couple of years ago. And so it's a long time. And by the grace of all that is, I'm just so grateful that that's when I decided that I was going to really listen to this voice and learn to hone it and trust it. And so fast forward to the story on the treadmill, because we're now 10 years later. And I had been working in the corporate world. I had this whole career. And I was I had my daughter, and I realized I needed to leave the corporate world and follow my intuition. And it was scary because I was making a very good living, 6-figure income, high level position. And I had a responsibility to my family. And yet my intuition was telling me that you have to do the next right thing. And so I decided to apply to graduate school to get my master's and my doctorate in clinical psychology finally. And so I was just about to start graduate school. I'm on the treadmill one morning, and my little daughter, 3-year-old, is playing next to me with her toys. And all of a sudden, I hear a voice that I was used to hearing, and it was, turn on the TV. And the voice told me to turn on a specific channel. And on the channel was a famous medium called John Edward. And he was probably one of the first in all of our, right? And they said, just like you, Lori. And I was like, what has happened to my angels? This is not me. I don't know how to do it. What are you talking about? Just like you, Lori. And I was like, what are you crazy. And then the next thing I know, I see this light in the ceiling, and no, I did not do psychedelics. I was not drinking. I see this light, and it looks like the ceiling opens up, and this angel comes down, touches my forehead, and says, Thomas needs to speak to his mother, Joy. And I was like, oh. And then I realized I don't know Thomas and I don't know Joy. So I'm still walking. And then I'm like, what do I do with this information? And the next hit I got was call your friend from the play group. And so I made the strangest phone call of my life. I turned up the treadmill. I ran upstairs to the landline, if this doesn't date me. And I made the phone call to my daughters. It was like, we were in this little play group, the hospital I gave birth in, and I called her and I just said, that I don't want to upset anybody. I need to ask you a couple of questions. Do you know a woman named Joy? And she said, well, yeah, I have a cousin named Joy. And I said, is there any chance that she lost a child named Thomas? She got really quiet. And she said, how do you know that? And I said, I need to ask you a question. Was he like 14 or 15 years old and at school? And did he just drop dead and they didn't know what it was? And she said, yes. And I said, oh my God, girl, you need to see a medium. You need to send her to a medium, just right. And I was like, I don't want to hurt a mother. I don't want to disturb a grieving person. But if she would like to speak with me, I believe, I'm here. I'm willing to talk to her. And so that's the beginning of the journey.
Wow. Wow.
And that
I
woman
mean, I
did
have
end up
chills,
calling.
and I will say this, at the gallery read, I cannot, I have no words. I mean, I just, when I saw you and the crowd and the spirit world coming to you and how it affected these people for real. I mean, it was really fabulous. I can only imagine what that was like for you. Though realizing that gift as well. I mean, it had to be it had to be like a birth and a death.
What an interesting way to put it, Cathy. It's really a brilliant way to put it. I sobbed, and then I prayed and I asked, God, please show me what you would have me do with this, because this isn't the plan I had for my life. But I had made a decision when I got sober, to turn my life and will over to the divine. And so I realized that, there's a plan that's different than I have for my life. What do I do? Because, doing readings is not part of psychology in grad school. They're not real happy about that. And so I had to really reconcile that as I went to grad school and decided what to do with this. What was I meant to do with it? And at first I split them. I did readings on, kind of on the side, and I would do psychotherapy, but I would sit with clients. I could see their energy field. I could see where suffering was in their energy field. I could see that you could pull out the burrs of energy, intrusive energy, and that they would be free. I just kept seeing things, and I would go back to my supervisors and say, I'm having experiences that aren't in our textbooks. What do I do with this? And I'm so fortunate because I had a wonderful supervisor who said, keep staying with it, stay with it, let yourself discover what it was. So I'm very lucky, because a lot of people would tell you to shut it down. And instead, my program encouraged me. And so eventually I merged them and moved on. And that's why I call what I do shamanic mediumship, because my emphasis is on healing. Even though evidential mediumship is so critical and so significant, and it's fundamental to what I do, you do need to provide evidence so people can trust you,
Right.
So, right? Because it's so important. It's a sacred thing.
Right.
You saw Cathy and Heidi, we know you're sitting with people, they're in their most vulnerable state, and that's a huge responsibility. So you have to provide evidence so that they know you're not, a charlatan. You're not, just, oh, I feel a mother here who loves you, but you're actually saying, who it is and details about them. But then the point of it is to provide healing, even if we don't know what that healing what that healing looks like.
Right. Really just surrendering to the divine.
All right. So now, Lori, you can tell me too, if you feel, this is, diving into your mind here. And when I was at the gallery, one of the readings you were giving, you and Heidi, were talking to the twin. And that was incredible for me. As the story went, one of the twins were traveling together, the two girls, and one had died in a car accident with her, and the other one lived. And I just don't know how anybody could get that kind of a detail. I mean, you literally said to her, are you a twin? You were in the car with your sister. She's telling me there was an accident. She doesn't want you to feel bad. And of course, I saw just all of this release off of this young girl who had been carrying this burden and this guilt, which the healing was unbelievable. Also being psychic, I just watched it lift. I mean, it was incredible. Mm-hmm. So I have to ask, when you are communicating, I know with me, it just kind of comes in all one. It's not like I'm necessarily, occasionally I will see, but I become one with the spirit and I just start communicating. I don't even know where it's coming from. What was it like? Are you seeing the person in front of you? Are you feeling their soul? What's happening when that is going on?
It's a really interesting question because it can vary. And it's even interesting to hear you describe the reading, because now I have to really work to remember it, because I really don't remember a lot when I do them.
Same.
But I am remembering, because then the people came up afterward, after the event, and that is one of the reasons I remember it more. Yeah. So most of the time, I'm not really seeing the spirit in front of me. I actually feel them behind me. In my training, shamanic training, that would be considered them coming in through what's called the shaman's mouth. And but in a Sanskrit world, that might be the crown, the ear chakras, the throat chakra, and the ajna all working as a unit. Yeah. So what does that mean? That means that I'm sensing the spirit telepathically and clairsentiently. So I'm feeling them. And similar to what you're saying, Cathy, and maybe it is true for you, Heidi, I'd love to hear your experience. For me, it's like it all comes in like at once, but it is also like getting to know somebody. I have to little by little let them tell their story, let it unfold. So there's like a huge feeling that surges over me. And then if they want me to know things, they'll give me clairvoyant kind of pictures or images in my mind that give me insight into who they are or what they were. I'm trying to remember. I do remember now, as I'm sitting here, that the sister had wanted her twin who was living to be freed from the guilt, because apparently there was driving, whatever, that she felt like she was carrying guilt around. Oh, I have chills, and did not want to be. So I get those chills, right, as a validation. So did that answer your question? It's seeing, it's feeling, it's knowing. Did.
And it's almost, I can cry thinking about it, because I just saw this girl who was with her twin sister, and it was just incredible. And the healing that took place right there in that moment, it was just beautiful. And your gifts are so needed. I mean, we need these kinds of gifts. We need people to realize this is an available modality here. And it was great. It was really great.
I believe mediumship is a real healing modality. And Lori, you've worked on both sides of it as a medium and also as a psychologist. So can you kind of touch on that, like the work that you would do with a client who's going through the grieving process versus mediumship? I guess for you probably, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but is there a difference there?
There's a significant difference. And one of the things that I'm very moved by in our community is how many psychologists and psychiatrists refer their clients to me for a reading as a facet of their healing journey. And that is very deeply moving to me, to have that sacred trust and to have that part of the community value what mediumship can bring, because I think it accelerates healing, right? It helps you, it kind of can give you insight or answers that you can't get otherwise. I mean, we can tune in and discover these on our own, but mediumship can really sort of, it's like a quantum leap. You can move in a direction, sometimes releasing a burden that you didn't even know you were carrying, or having a sense of peace that, for me, like this first reading that I ever did that I just described to you, we're talking about a mother losing her child. Maybe nothing worse, right? There maybe nothing harder. Tragic losses, they're just so difficult. And to know that you can bring a measure of peace to someone's soul in this experience is the reason I keep doing it. That's the reason I keep doing it. If we can bring any measure of comfort to somebody, to let them know, hey, this happened. I can't deny it. That's real. That's true. But the soul is eternal and love is eternal, and that your child is safe. Your child is in peace. And as a parent, right, that I think you can take another breath. You feel like you can move forward. And then, as you guys know, I mean, just to have the idea that, wait, what? You can actually talk to them and they can communicate with us and it's accurate. I feel like my mind is blown every single time.
Totally. Same. I'm humbled by it. It never gets old.
Yeah.
I'm constantly humbled. And if I ever get to the point where I'm not humbled, then I shouldn't be doing it anymore.
I agree. If it's ever old hat, I'm like, I think I'm burnt out and bye-bye, gotta go. Or I've lost touch with what's sacred, because every time it's exciting and mind-blowing to me. I mean, just consistently so.
And the other piece that I learned from you, Lori, is the big part is to be a hollow bone, to surrender and to just not filter what comes through.
Right.
And I always set the intention, which I learned from you, to work with the archangels, Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael, and in Gabriel in particular, the messenger angel, asking him to give me the right words that will touch this person so that they hear it in the way that is going to provide healing. Yes. And so really being a hollow bone. And so, for example, those twins that the twin that was passed, we connected with the sister, and the sister came through and we were both able to connect with her. And she was like, you got to tell her. She had work to do. She needed to stay. She needs to hear this. And so, like your sister saying, you need to let go of the guilt that you have for surviving, that you lived because you still have work to do. And she went on to say that she's a nurse. Yes. So you have people's lives to touch. You have healing to provide. You have, there's a mission still for you. And as hard as it is for you to accept, her sister had to tell her, I accomplished everything I was supposed to. I had already accomplished everything I was supposed to. And that's why I went. And it's time for you to stay because you still had things to do. And so really being the hollow bone, I think, is one of the greatest gifts to give people, but also one of the hardest things to learn and really to let go of, to really be that hollow bone and to just deliver the message, because sometimes it's like, am I going to do this justice? So I think that's the special piece that you taught me that I'm grateful to have, and to just show up and just say it.
You did such a beautiful job, and to have been a part of your journey, have witnessed you come out and own your abilities and show up in the way that you've done, was just an absolute privilege and joy. You did a gorgeous, beautiful job. And to be a hollow bone, I think, is a practice, whether you're a psychic medium, an intuitive, whatever way you show up, we can all learn to do that. And you know that I teach, you know, in the intuitive practitioner program and other programs, to attune, to align, to allow. These are the three foundations. There's other A's to it too, but the three, because when you learn to elevate your vibration, elevate your consciousness, align with the highest good, and then get out of the way, allow that which spirit has to say or the divine wants to do through you, your life can flow in the direction of miracles. You really can be a steward for love and beauty and kindness and peace in the world. And that can apply no matter what kind of work you're doing. You don't have to be a psychic medium to learn how to do that. Let that beauty come through us. Because I really think that we're at a time on the earth where that's what the divine or the universe source wants from all of us, to live our best, most beautiful lives.
Yeah.
And it's all coming from a place of love.
That's right.
Everything that we're talking about has one common denominator: love, that you're putting it out and you're taking it in. And that's what we're really loving yourself, loving others. And go ahead.
I was just going to make a comment because it just came to me that I did a reading where, and I'm trying to remember the details of it, but I did a post on it because it was so funny to me that the spirit had been raised in a specific religion. And he said to his loved one, hey, guess what? There's no borders in heaven. And that's really what we're saying. That's what love is. There's no limits. There's no borders. Everybody's in heaven. Everybody is loved. Everybody is considered sacred and beautiful. And it really harkens back to what Heidi said in the beginning, which is, you know, Mom, I love everybody. That's how the divine is. The divine loves everyone, and it understands suffering. It understands the suffering that caused you to do something that might put you in jail. It doesn't say don't be accountable. A lot of people misunderstand that. You can be accountable, but still be held in love and still experience grace and still healing.
That's so beautiful.
I just have to say, you complimenting me, Lori, and your words of affirmation and your words of encouragement just mean so much. And it touched me very deeply. So thank you for those kind words. It means a lot.
Heidi, you are, ever since I've known you, you're a ball of love. I mean, everything about you goes to a loving thought about someone, to a giving, loving. I mean, it gives me chills. It's who you are. So it does not surprise me, that story. And that is the first time you shared it with me.
Okay, so, anybody got Kleenexes?
That's what it's all about, though, isn't it? That's why we're here. And that's what this work is. You know, people think it's psychic and it's cool and it's fun and you can do really cool things with it. You really can. And it can be fabulous. I mean, you have this great show and you're talking to different people who show up in different ways. And I think that's really important for the world to understand too, how many ways intuition expresses itself through us, right? And how different we all can be. And that's really the exquisiteness of opening your heart to what intuition wants to give. Because I think for me, everybody's intuitive because intuition is the language of the soul. And so far as I can tell, everybody has a soul and therefore everybody has intuition.
Yes. Totally. Yes. And that is absolutely, and so many people need to hear that and understand that it's not a woo-woo thing. It's who you are, and everybody has it. That's and right. I just, the fact that you said that, it's so important for people to embrace. Yeah. It really is.
I think it's an exciting time because it's a time where more people are open to it, even though there's people that are afraid, of course. You know, you had asked me, I think at one point, you know, when, maybe not in this conversation, in another conversation, you know, how do you tell the difference between intuition and, you know, anxiety or the ego? And intuition is consistent. It's has a mature or a wise tone to it. It's always bringing you out of your comfort zone, but in a way that's empowering. And it doesn't compare you to others. It never puts you down. It never makes you feel lack. Even if you feel anxious, you have a deep underneath it, there's an undercurrent of peace. There's like this, oh, I'm going to do this and this feels scary to me, but it's not like, oh, you're right, you're going to suck. It's like, oh yeah, it's okay. We've got you. You're loved. It's got this beautiful quality, tone to it, sensation to it that encourages growth and empowerment and healing and unity.
That brings me to a question that is so key with what you said earlier. Is the difference between your intuition and fear? And you said something about comfort zones here. And I know generally, and I try to tell my clients, look, if you're getting afraid of jumping out of your comfort zone, it's telling you that's where you need to grow. That is where you need to grow. When you're afraid to go out of your comfort zone, recognize you need to grow. And at the same time, the intuition, a lot of people will say, well, is this fear or is it my intuition? Is this anxiety or is it my intuition? What are your thoughts on that, Heidi and Lori?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, please. I'd love to hear both of you on this.
So one of the most significant things is what I was saying, which is the tone of it is going to be calm, wise, sort of a mature quality to it. But it's also, it's got an altruistic feeling to it. It has an encouraging quality to it. And it really doesn't give you the why. It gives you the do this next. It's sort of, it stays in the moment. So everything is about what to do next. And it can reassure you through anxiety rather than reinforce the anxiety. So it'll be like, even if it's big. Now, here's where being a psychologist has been extremely helpful for me, because then I can help people deal with their anxiety and their fear without shaming it, without being like, oh, you just need to shut that down. No, anxiety also can be an important piece of information. It doesn't mean that it's true. It means that there's something in your nervous system, something in your environment that's telling you to be afraid, right? To be concerned. And every time you feel anything similar to it, your nervous system goes back to it. So you can rewire your nervous system to learn the difference between what you're interpreting as fearful or as anxious in a way where you calm the system and start to hear the difference between the voice of the habit mind, which is usually scarce, which keeps you small, which compares you to others, which makes you feel limited, versus the voice of intuition, which is unlimited, which is absolutely expansive, which is urging you, like you said, Cathy, out of your comfort zone.
Love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Heidi, what are your thoughts on that? Because we talked a little bit about this and you were the one who really outlined that difference. And I just wanted to hear a little bit about what you thought.
I mean, I definitely piggyback on what Lori says. I have a client who I've been working with for about a year now, a young man who is 20 years old. He's going through a spiritual awakening. A little bit quickly, it happened a little bit faster than it probably should have, based on some choices that he made, exposures to psychedelics and things like that. So it cracked in his ajna center. He had a crack in his ajna, and so I've been doing a lot of healing work with him, hands-on healing, essence retrieval, some soul retrieval, and that kind of work, but also really teaching him to understand the difference between intuition and fear. He's also having, hearing voices and things like that, which, some people, and Lori, we've talked about this too, that many times people like us back in the day were considered a little crazy, a little Meshuggah, whatever the word you want to use.
We
And
were witches.
well, witches. So we were either witches and burned at the stake, or we were thrown in an insane asylum and, told we were crazy. And so I think working with this young man, really kind of learning how to guide him down and how to listen to the anxiety that he has, the anxiety that he was experiencing, a lot of anxiety from using marijuana. He backed off on that. That really helped with the paranoia, really kind of clearing his energetic field, not doing any substances so that he could really ground himself and get himself to a point that he was able to be inside his body, because very often he was outside of his body. But then also teaching him those tools that intuition is going to raise you up. It's going to encourage you. It's going to lead you down the right path, where fear, a lot of times it comes from a sense of lack, or, a place of lower vibration. And so learning the difference between the two. So very much what Lori is saying. And I think, encouraging our clients when they come to us, again, just really encouraging them to expose themselves to as many classes and as many groups as they can. There's always something to learn. We're never stopping learning. We're always learning something new. I'm doing the intuitive practitioner certification part 2, and I'm learning something new every day. I just learned things just today. So Lori and I were talking about spirit animals and magic, and the magic and the medicine that come with the work that we do, and the animals that we work with, and all of that. So always learning, always being humble, and saying, I don't know it all, but I want to learn more. Teach me more.
I think that living an intuitive life is living in a state of curiosity about the universe itself, and what is reality? What is the universe? And if you feel like you've gotten the answers, then you've stopped growing, and you've landed on an untruth. So, right, I really think it's about that, staying in the question, living in the question, and always being curious. And I do think that one of the things you're discussing is very critical, and that is having mentors. If you're feeling like you're having spiritual awakening, qualified mentors. And I'm using the word plural because I don't think people get worried about guru. I'm not talking about gurus or a teacher. I'm talking about qualified guides who've, like Sherpas that have walked the mountain, that can walk the walk with you. And so that if you are having a spiritual awakening, you are having intuitive experiences, you can learn discernment. You can, voices can mean that you are hearing from the realm of spirit. But these voices, if they are here in service of your highest good, they will lead to positive outcomes for you and for the highest good of others. And if they are not benevolent, then they'll make you feel paranoid or lost or stuck or small. And we don't need to be afraid of that. We just have to have discernment, just like you would with people in your life. That's all.
Right. Yeah. 1000%.
Right.
1000%. I could talk all day, but just for a matter of time, I think we need to start wrapping it up. But one of the things that I learned from you, Lori, is the biggest thing I learned from you is when it comes to ethics and morals and the ethical boundaries that we have to use when we do the work that we do. The work that we do can be very challenging, and sometimes we can get information that, what am I to do with this? And so can you speak a little bit about overall the ethics of the work that we do, whether it be mediumship or shamanic work? Can you lend a little ear to that?
There's, I teach about ethics, and I would say there's some fundamentals. And one is you never do a reading or give guidance without permission. So you always ask for permission. If you can't get direct permission, then you get permission from the highest level guide that you can. In other words, if a person's in a coma and you feel like you're called to do healing, you have to ask the highest level guide that you know to does it serve the highest good? So that's one thing. And always to surrender to the highest good. And that can sound like, okay, so how do you know what's the highest good? That really can take some practice and discernment. That for, one of the things I said is using intuition in my own life and really practicing, discovering, is this leading me to always a higher, better outcome? If it is, then I can trust it. And if it isn't, then I really need to hone it, right? So how do I know that? One is that trust, that practice of attunement and alignment, and then opening to only those or that which is in alignment with the highest level love, guide, highest level truth of the universe. So you might call that God or source or creator, whatever way you do. If Jesus is your guy, then call in Jesus. If whoever you put in that posture that is the highest, most loving, have them take charge of your words, have them take charge of your deeds. And you will notice that you will find the right words so that you're not revealing things that plant seeds of harm. So just like in the medical field, one of the ethical guidelines is that we only plant seeds of hope and love and empowerment. And so let's say people are always afraid, like, what if I get bad news? I don't want to go to a medium or psychic. Right. I'm afraid of that. And we don't deliver bad news if we're working in an ethical, because what we deliver are solutions. Let's say you were being told there's something that's not exactly ideal that's coming, then the divine is going to use you as an instrument to tell that individual, how am I going to navigate that? How do I navigate that so that I can get through that in the best possible way for my family, for me? And so I think that's, a really significant ethical boundary. And then the last thing I would say is, maybe the last two things I would say about boundaries is also self-care for the intuitive, because even though it looks natural, it's really intense work to open yourself up, right? And I took a class many, many years ago with John Holland and his colleague Bob Proctor, who said that 1 hour in working in a psychic realm, any non-ordinary reality, is the same as 3 hours in ordinary reality. And so that's the toll it takes on the body, mind, and spirit. So we have to really self-care, and we're usually not good at it.
Nope.
Right? Our habit is to serve. Our habit is to show up. It's like, no, I got it, right? And a lot of women and men can understand that because we put others first. And so we have to learn to include ourselves, on the list, and to make our health, our wellness a priority so that we take really good care of ourselves. So then we really are serving from a full well. So
yes.
And Lori, when you just said that, I just think of my client, and I had an 1.5 hour read for her. And of course I went over, because sometimes spirit will say, you're not done. You're not done.
Yeah.
And after I was done, she said to me, oh my gosh, I feel like I just figured everything out that would have taken me 12 years in therapy. And I thought, and I just feel like I need to wring myself out like a mop. I'm going to bed. Goodbye. You just lucked out. And it's like that. And so for the client, it's like, oh my gosh, I just got it, but it takes everything out of you. And but of course, the outcome for a client, it's worth every second. It's worth everything. And of course you need to recharge after that, but that is a great feeling.
That's right. And making sure that you recharge and clear your energy and work with your own energy responsibly is going to help you do that.
Totally. Well, thank you, Lori, so much for being here with us tonight. We absolutely adored having you. And you know that I honor you. I see you. I am so grateful for you and so humbled that you're my teacher and my mentor and my friend. And so thank you. I
It's
love
my
you.
privilege, and you're my teacher too. And both of you, I'm very honored to be with you. Thank you for showing up in the world, for being authentic and creating this beautiful podcast. So, so many people can learn about you and the beautiful work that you do and the other work that people are doing in the world. So thank you. Thank you. I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you,
Thankfully.
Lori.
Thankfully, the world's ready for it. I really feel like the world is thirsty for it, is
Yes.
quenching. We're here to quench the thirst. So
Right. That's right.
thanks for being part of it.
My pleasure.
All
Love
right,
you
everybody.
all.
We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining Scorpio Rising. Good night.
Good night.